I'm Laura Bonnell, and this is the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast coming to you from Detroit. Please subscribe and even rate and comment on our podcasts when it moves you. I learn something new with every podcast, and I'm always inspired by the people that are showcased here. We don't give medical advice. You need to connect with your doctor for that. I hope that this Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast educates you and sparks some volunteering or advocacy. The CF community needs people like you. Thanks to our sponsors, Viatris and Vertex, for their support. Today's guest is a powerhouse of resilience, talent, and purpose. Julia Ray is a singer, actress, writer, and passionate patient advocate. She was born with cystic fibrosis, and Julia knew from a young age that she was meant to use her voice not just to sing, but to make a difference. At just 16, she founded Singing at the Top of My Lungs, a nonprofit that empowers children through music therapy and raises awareness about cystic fibrosis. Her music career took off when a YouTube video caught the attention of a Beverly Hills record producer. And soon after, her single, Be That Girl, was featured in the film The Greening of Whitney Brown. And while navigating her health journey, Julia has built an incredible career spanning music, acting, journalism, and advocacy. She has performed the national anthem at NBA and MLB games, appeared in national commercials, starred in the 2024 feature film Playing Through, and competed on ABC's Listen to Your Heart. Julia is a powerful voice in the chronic illness community, and she co-created and hosted Making It Matter with the Boomer Esiason Foundation, and now leads Uncommon Lungs with Vertex Pharmaceuticals. Her latest venture is A Deeper Look, a podcast that brings thoughtful interviews with bold, inspiring women, with new episodes returning this year. So very exciting. Julia Ray is not just a performer, she's a storyteller, a fighter, and someone who's turning adversity into advocacy. So excited to say welcome to Julia. It is wonderful to have you. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm really excited. We've talked over the years, but never at any length like this. So it's great to connect.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to have this opportunity. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And I guess right off the bat, I wanted to ask you, what inspired you, or did you just know from a young age that you were going to do all these incredible things, acting, singing, podcasting, everything that you're doing?
I always say that singing and performing were as much a part of my DNA as cystic fibrosis. I did know from a very young age that that is what I wanted out of life. My mom always tells a story that I watched Barney singing and dancing on TV and asked her how I get in there and do that with him at, the age of 2. So I think the instinct was always there for me, and the love of performing was always there for me, but I couldn't have imagined that it would go, I think like anyone's life, I couldn't have imagined like what it would have turned out to be.
And isn't it interesting, because I always say the serendipitousness of this disease, like I'm right where I should be. When, I knew when I was a news reporter that was my passion. But then when Molly was diagnosed and then Emily, I was like, well, that's my purpose. Like, okay, now I have this voice for CF, from news to just raising awareness. So I felt like I was right where I should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when I was 16 was when I started publicly speaking about having CF. And up until that point, I actually hid my CF from even directors of shows I was in. I just wanted to keep it a secret. I think there's, a little bit of wanting to protect that part of my life. And there was also the feeling of I didn't want roles because of pity, and I certainly didn't want to be discounted because of CF. And I kind of lived with this mentality of, well, if I get sick or if I can't perform, I'll deal with it then. And then when I was 16, I had the opportunity. I won Miss Pennsylvania Teen, and I had a platform all of a sudden. And I realized I really wanted to use my voice for CF. And that's when I remember being home one day and writing down ideas for what my service platform would be. And that's when I came up with, I'm going to sing at the top of my lungs for CF. And that has, since become my nonprofit foundation.
Did it free you? I felt like for me, letting people know about cystic fibrosis, I felt like this is all of me. Like this CF is part of our family. So it was sort of freeing, I felt.
Certainly. I think on a number of levels, it's freeing, right? From the burden of keeping a secret, because I always think that's a burden that anyone carries, regardless of what that secret is. And then I think also it's freeing because I believe that service is one of the greatest tools for mental health. And being of service to others is, it's funny because I'm like, oh, isn't that a selfish way of looking at service? But it's not, because service at the end of the day is still for others. But it's the best thing you can do for your own mental health as well. When you turn outward and when you share your story and you can tell that it's a benefit to others, there's so much power in that. And I think that's a big driver of resilience too.
And it's therapy. I feel like it's therapy. It's exactly what you just said, but we're talking about it. And other parents with kids who have chronic illnesses that aren't CF, I can totally relate to everything they're going through, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's powerful to connect on that level. And I think certainly with CF, thank goodness we live at a time such as this where we're able to connect online and on all of these platforms, because with infection control, that's just not something that would have been possible years ago. And so I think just realizing what we have at our fingertips and being able to connect on this level is so valuable.
And tell us about your foundation, what you're doing, what you started doing, and where you're going.
Yeah. So initially, we were devoted partially to CF research and also supporting child life and music and art therapies in children's hospitals. And then as the CF Foundation and so many other foundations have such a wonderful hold on CF research, I've decided to devote all of Singing Top My Lungs to music and creative arts therapies and supporting those programs in children's hospitals. They are underfunded, significantly underfunded, not covered by insurance, and they're often, honestly, the unsung heroes of our children's hospitals because they provide such a valuable service for the psychosocial well-being of not only patients, but the families as well. And I know what my child life specialist and my music therapists did for me, and they transformed my patient experience as a young child with a chronic illness, gave me the confidence to believe in my dreams, pursue my dreams outside of the hospital walls, and think of myself as a, full human being beyond my diagnosis. We have awarded grants to music therapy programs across the country, and now we are dropping off Feel Better boxes, and we've dropped them off to about 7 children's hospitals across the nation since we started last April. And we can't wait to continue to do that. The Feel Better boxes have a musical element inside each box for each age range. So the little kids get little xylophones and karaoke microphones for the 10-year-old age range, and then headphones for the older kids, who I think are often the forgotten ones when they're hospitalized. And then they get access to online meditations through the Feel Better boxes. They get a journal, and they get affirmation cards. And it's really just filled with things that I know made a difference for me in my hospital stays.
And child life. Oh my gosh. When Emily always had trouble, it was trauma, giving blood. And child life was just a blessing. Like they solved so many problems, and just, it wasn't this long process. It was like 30 seconds of holding this tube of water that had blue in it or something and turning it upside down and taking the focus away. They are incredible. Just all the tools that they give the kids. And it really helped me as a parent watching the struggles. And then child life comes in and they take over, and it's a whole different focus. They're incredible. And it's funny because about the music, I mean, I can't sing to save my life, but one time the girls had a couple friends in their room and somebody brought a guitar. you're just relaxed. It's like having a kitten in your lap or something. You just
Yep.
have this music, and it's beautiful.
Yeah, I think they're kind of magicians, right? Because they have all these answers that seem simple, but we're not thinking that way, right? Especially as moms and caregivers, we're thinking about the pain that our child is faced with. And it's so hard to kind of think of those answers that those child life specialists are so highly trained to have for them. I remember actually my child life specialist advocated for me because part of my control from a very young age was watching them put a needle in my arm. And that was a coping mechanism for me. And oftentimes the lab tech would tell me to turn away, and my child life specialist would be like, "Oh no, she likes to watch, because it's her body." And that taught me from a young age, like even to this day, like I just got blood drawn this week, and I was like, I know this is strange, but I want to watch the needle go in. Like that's part of my coping mechanism and putting myself back in like the driver's seat. And having a child life specialist kind of teach me how to advocate for myself at such a young age is an invaluable source, and like you said, so valuable for parents as well.
And what do you hear from the people that you inspire and that really appreciate the boxes and everything that you have done to raise awareness through music?
It's so incredible. I just was in Pittsburgh last week and did a drop off of 20 boxes at Pittsburgh Children's, and I got to meet with their music therapy team. And as an adult, talking with the music therapy team and telling them the long-term benefits of the work they do, they were very appreciative to hear that, because I think, they're working in such acute situations and short-term situations that it's nice to understand that this actually has a long-term effect on these patients and a long-standing impact on their lives, and the way that they're able to cope with not only the struggles that their illness may bring, but beyond those struggles. And they're part of that. It's so great to connect with the clinicians on that way. And then, I got an email from a mom in Phoenix that got a Feel Better box with her daughter. And it's really powerful to hear from parents and children that the Feel Better box made them feel better and made them feel seen and is giving them something to do while they're in the hospital. So those are the things that keep me going and keep me wanting to do this kind of work.
It is very exciting, and I don't know if we can ever collaborate, but we have bags, you have these boxes, and we have things for parents like coffee mugs and gift cards for Starbucks cards and phone chargers. But anyways, that's something maybe in the future, but I think it's a beautiful thing that you're doing, and I know that it's really appreciated by parents and the people that you're helping.
Thank you. Yeah, I would love that. That would be great to collaborate.
It would be. Collaboration is so fun. It's wonderful. Do you hear from some of the patients and the kids that you help, do they want to kind of follow your path, or is more of it looking just to help them in the day to day, or do you find that some of them also want careers like you have?
I found a mixture. I think a lot of them are just appreciative for the kind of relief that the box brings them, and the access to somebody who's also gone through a similar situation. And then I've heard from kids that are interested in pursuing, what I'm doing. So it's really nice to be able to kind of have that line of communication.
And what are you working on now in your career? Like, where are you, and what are some of the favorite things that you've done?
Oh gosh. I guess the feature film that came out last year, Playing Through, that I got to co-lead, was a dream come true for me. I came across a diary when I was like 8 years old, and one of the things I wrote down was like, I want to star in a movie one day. And it's very cool to look back and feel like I did that. I've done that now. That's very kind of just a full circle moment. So Playing Through is something that I'm very proud of, and it's on Amazon, so you can watch it there. And now I've always been a writer in various forms, songwriting, and now I am very much a screenwriter, and I have a few projects in development. So I'm very excited to see where those take me. And that's where most of my time and energy is these days, is writing.
Do you want to share like a little bit of your CF journey, like where you've been, how your health is, and how things are going?
Yeah. Like many, I am a beneficiary of the genetic modulators. They've completely transformed my life. I feel like ever since I got on Trikafta, I've had a new lease on life. Um, and I feel like I'm not only doing things actively that I didn't think that I would be doing, but I'm pursuing dreams that I kind of put on the back burner because I didn't know that I would be physically capable of pursuing them. And that's a really interesting place to be in, an exciting place to be in. So, yeah, my health has been transformed by the genetic modulators, and I think with that comes also the emotional proposition of dealing with, like, what does that mean when you are coping with having a second chance at life? And I don't know, I've seen a lot written about this too for the CF community of like, what does that mean for us, and how do we come to terms with maybe what might have been and what can be. And I think it's just this balance of like a little bit of grief, because you're like, well, oh, if only this had come sooner, right? What would my life have looked like? But then also the immense gratitude that you feel for just having access to it at all. And I think there's just an interesting juxtaposition that comes with a second lease on life.
Oh, for sure. And I know you can't speak on behalf of your parents, but you must know how the new modulators make them feel. Because for me, it was such a sense of relief. But how are your parents doing with, all the new science that's helping you?
Oh yeah. I mean, I do know because I was surprised that my mother took the mic at my wedding, and she felt compelled to do so. I got married on New Year's Eve, this past New Year's Eve, and my mom spoke about never allowing herself to think about my wedding day, because it just wasn't something that she saw as a possibility, really. And there wasn't a dry eye in the ballroom when she made this speech, because she talked about how beautiful it was to be able to live in that moment and watch it come true when it wasn't even a dream that she held. Um, but it's all thanks to those genetic modulators. So, dreams coming true all around, really, for my family.
That is so beautiful. That is beautiful. And weren't you on the cover of People magazine?
Not the cover, but I was in it.
Yeah,
I was,
because
yeah.
I remember seeing that, minor detail, People
Yeah.
magazine. But
Yeah.
that's so wonderful. And, you're beautiful inside and out, but what a beautiful bride. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
It was a
Thank you.
beautiful, beautiful picture. And that must be exciting and surreal to see yourself in such a huge magazine that millions and millions of people are looking at.
Yeah, it was very exciting when they said they wanted to cover it. And it was definitely a pinch me moment for sure. Pinch me moment because it was my wedding and my dream wedding, but also just to have it be publicized in such a way was definitely a pinch me moment.
There you go again, doing great awareness, raising awareness so much. Because I always think it's important that you're a person, you're an actress first. The CF doesn't have you, right? It doesn't define you clearly. I mean, it's a part of all of our lives, but I just think that is such a beautiful thing that you're living your best life.
Yeah, thanks. That's always been such an important balance to me. I remember when I was single and dating, I used to cry to my mom because the disclosure of having CF felt like such an odd thing to approach when I was dating, because it felt like it brought such a level of seriousness to a relationship that might not be there yet. Like, when do I bring it up? Do I bring it up on the first date, the second date? All of those things that we often overthink. But I think when you have something like CF and it is so personal, it's hard not to think about those things, and it's hard not to consider those. And it was something that I battled with a lot because I did just want to be, a 24-year-old girl that was dating. I didn't want to be a 24-year-old girl with this like emotional and mental baggage when I had to bring this up, right? That was the way that I felt. And so learning how to kind of navigate that was an adjustment for me, but it certainly was how I felt. Like I definitely didn't want CF to be, I didn't want to feel like that was all that I brought to the table. And I approach kind of life in that way. I definitely always am open to talking about it, but it's certainly not the only thing about me.
If you were giving advice to other people, because so many, I mean, my daughters go through and have gone through that as well. What advice? Does it just depend on each person, each relationship as far as, when you speak up about that?
Yeah, I think I found that, with my husband, isn't it funny that I did feel comfortable bringing it up on the first date? And in that way, like that people say, when I think I felt very safe with him from the get-go. And there was certainly like a learning curve for me. I think there were times when I brought it up early because I thought like, oh, let's just rip the Band-Aid off, And then there were times where I withheld it for probably too long that it became this elephant in the room because I am a public advocate. It's one of the first things you know about me if you visit my social media or you look up my name. And so there were definitely missteps on my part as far as not sharing it when maybe that would have actually deepened a connection with somebody, And then there were probably times where I shared it with somebody that didn't deserve to have access to that part of me. And I feel like that's a thing that often people are dealing with in dating in different terms, right? Maybe if it's not CF, it's something else that they're worried about sharing with somebody. And I think there is that learning curve. So I don't really have any advice as far as like, oh, definitely bring it up by date 3, like I think it is so circumstantial. And I think the best thing to do is to trust yourself and trust that when is best for you to share.
Great advice. And, you do a lot of advocacy, obviously. What sort of advocacy are you doing? And of the different kinds of advocacy, I guess, what do you feel like is either more important or more important to you?
Oh gosh, I think the podcast that I host with Vertex has been so valuable for me, and then I hear from parents, patients, and families that it's valuable for them as well. And I think that stems from just the power of sharing our stories and feeling like we're less alone. So that's always been something that I really enjoy. I always love talking at, CF town halls and clinics across the nation. That's something like where I get to meet families face to face. And who knows, maybe one day soon with the genetic, with all the leaps and bounds we're making in science, we'll be able to have, face to face conversations with CF patients someday. That's kind of a dream later on.
That is really exciting because, and for anyone who doesn't know, that was the whole 6 feet apart and cross, contamination with bacteria and things like that you have to worry about. And as a parent, it was really hard because you could never have play dates. You couldn't get together with other families and things like that. Do you also watch legislation? Because I'm really big on advocating for legislation that impacts, CF families. And there's so much going on now. It seems like there's so many things that can impact the rare disease community, right?
Yes. These days it's hard to keep up with it all because it's ever changing. I feel like every day. But certainly I've advocated on the Hill with Vertex and the CF Foundation, and certainly find that level of advocacy empowering in many ways, just to feel like you're doing that level of work and using your voice in that way is something that I think CF patients should certainly feel empowered to do more of.
And you are doing so much. I mean, from your foundation to being an actress to singing and advocating and everything. Are you finding time to just chill and take care of yourself as well? Plus you have treatments and everything that, some people just don't have to do that. How do you keep yourself healthy and keep going with everything you're doing?
You know, I always like to multitask with my treatments, so I'm always chipping away at some task or another while I'm doing my breathing treatments. But lucky for me, and I feel very grateful that this is the case, that my work feels like my passion. And, certainly writing is a form of therapy for me. And a lot of the stories that I'm choosing to tell in my writing are very personal to me and stem from personal experiences. So I feel like it's a gift that I get to say that my work is also just like feels like me time. And I think that's kind of how I'm able to balance it.
And I'm sure it's like picking your favorite child, which isn't possible to do, but is it acting that you love more than, or is it singing that you love more than acting, or is it just whatever you're doing at the time?
I think it's whatever I'm doing at the time. Singing will always be, I think, my first like greatest love. I find just the vibration of music to be soothing. I know that even if I'm like in a bad mood one day, if I turn on a playlist, that like 99.9% of the time, my mood will change because of the music. And I think that that's just like such a powerful resource that we have at our fingertips. So I will always love singing and music, but I love acting and I love writing. And really, I guess I just love storytelling.
And I was just looking up Ashley because I wonder if you know her. She does Breathe Bravely and she sings. And oh, I would
I
love to
don't.
connect you. She
Yeah.
does singing as well. I'm just going to show you her. I know everyone can't
Yes.
see, but yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
I will
she's,
definitely find her.
yeah, I will connect you via email.
That'd be great.
Yeah, because I think you would inspire each other. And I think
Yeah.
it's always wonderful to connect people. I love doing that, and I appreciate it when others do that as well. How do you hope to, continue connecting the CF community and making a mark and impacting others with, everything that you're doing?
I have a couple of projects that I'm working on. I can't say much about them, but I hope they have a significant impact for the community at large, and then for the for a broader community to be introduced to CF and what it means to have CF. And that's kind of my hope for the future in general, is just to keep finding ways to not only connect further with the CF community and give back to the CF community, but also to raise awareness on a larger level.
And there's so much work to be done, as you know, the final 10%, or maybe it's more than
Yeah.
10%. But Emily's entourage is working on so much research. I know you know her, and
Mhm.
oh my gosh, they're doing such great things. There's so much hope for the future, right?
So much. I mean, I talk about when I speak with parents, the difference between talking to parents today versus just 7, 8 years ago. You know, I always had hope, I think, but I often refer to it as like blind hope and blind faith. And now it's tangible. When I talk to parents today, I guess I wouldn't use the word easy, but there's a sense of relief talking to them about hope because I feel like I'm talking about something that they can hold on to and actually they can, versus something that we're just all hoping to hear about one day. And that difference is really exciting. And I think it's exciting on a fundraising level too. Whenever I, you know, am at a CF event speaking, you know, this is history. We're living in a historic time. And if you are giving to the CF Foundation, you're a part of that history. And isn't that an amazing and special way to look at it? And yeah, we need to keep fighting because history is yet to be made for that remaining 10%.
Absolutely. And of course, the CF Foundation made up by parents and people, invested, and then everybody that joined in that maybe didn't have a direct CF connection but wanted to help their friends. It is just incredible, and really important. And I always think too, when I talk to new parents, or I was just speaking at a family night, I said, when my daughters were born, because they're 27 and 30 years old, they had to plug in their vests, and those machines, they weighed a ton. It felt like a ton. And then you had to, take them and carry them if they went to grandma's house or whatever. And there were no CF modulators. And honestly, 30 years ago, I think they had recently put enzymes in capsules. So we have come so fast in science. It's unbelievable.
It really is. I remember those vest machines so well. I remember ours, the timer on it broke, and my mom had a rule that we couldn't play video games unless we were on the vest. And that rule applied to my oldest brother, who does not have CF, too. So he used to beg us to do treatments. But I remember her like calling down to us in the basement, and she'd be like, "Isn't that over? Like, you've been on it for enough." She almost had to like get us off the treatment because we were like, "Well, it's the only time we can play video games."
Oh, that's fun.
But yeah, I do remember how big and clunky those things were. It is really just astonishing, and there is really no other word for it other than miracle to think of how far we have come. And just so quickly. Yeah, it's remarkable.
What else, if there's anything else, do you hope to see for the future, or something like the vest? Like, I know when my girls had it, there wasn't enough room. It hurt their armpits, or it didn't have enough space for their breasts. I mean, there were just little things like that, but
Yeah.
things that have changed now. Are you thinking about other things that could be changed too, that would be more efficient for people?
I think as we like move forward in the genetic modulators, I know I'm waiting to switch to the latest generation in a couple of months, and I'm really excited to see what that does for me. And I think certainly as I like look to start a family in the years to come, just being aware of kind of what that looks like and family planning on a genetic modulator. I think I'm excited just about what the future holds on a scientific level and understanding what is possible. Certainly, because I really wouldn't have believed if someone had told me that this would be my life and this would what my life would look like. I would not have believed them. And so isn't that a cool thing to think, well, what does that mean for the future then?
As you raise awareness, do you find that more and more people are understanding cystic fibrosis? I think we're a pretty connected disease community, and I feel like a lot of people have heard about it. So, and it seems to be growing, but are you finding that there is more awareness about CF thanks to your efforts as well?
It is interesting. I feel like I've had to explain it less, perhaps in recent years. And I think that's also due to, how massive the venture philanthropy of the CF Foundation was, and kind of how monumental the way they even funded the genetic modulators was. So oftentimes I find people know about that, but they don't necessarily know what CF is. And I'm certainly always happy to educate.
Fantastic. And who else inspires you besides your parents? I think about who inspires me in the CF community and, of course, outside of it. But there's just a variety of people. Like, there was a mom who said, "Oh, this cap didn't fit on I can't remember which, I don't want to say the wrong, it wasn't Toby, it was something else. But like, a cap didn't fit." And she called the company, and they're like, "Oh, good point. We see that it doesn't fit. Thanks for telling us." And she changed it for all of us, just under the radar, never talked about it until I asked her. And I was like,
Well,
oh my gosh. So are you inspired and know some people like that?
oh yeah. Margaret Casalina is a huge inspiration to me.
Yes. Love her.
Yeah. her willingness to share her story and her openness about facing the grief of losing Jenna, and then her incredible grit and resilience to pull herself out of that to become, this ray of hope and light in so many ways for everyone else, has always been inspiring to me. And Emily from Emily's Entourage is a huge inspiration to me. Her resilience is incredible, and her commitment and dedication are definitely an inspiration to me. I mean, I feel like the list goes on and on. I feel like anyone that I've had the privilege to interview on the Vertex podcast, I walk away so inspired by. And the parents that I meet when I'm out speaking, sometimes there are days when I certainly feel like, this feels so personal to constantly be sharing my story. And some days it's not always easy for me. And then I remember or am introduced to somebody new that tells me what that has meant for them. And all of a sudden my commitment to do this work is reinvigorated. So, I mean, the inspiration never runs dry.
That is so true and wonderful. And they're doing things like diagnosing in vitro, or you can take Trikafta when you're pregnant for your child.
Mm-hmm.
So it just keeps on going. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. So it's a very exciting time.
Is there anything else that you wanted to mention, either what's coming up in the future? I know you alluded to a couple things, but anything else that you wanted to mention?
I think stay tuned. We'll be doing more Feel Better box drop-offs in the near future. We're really excited about continuing that work with Sing and Top My Lungs. And stay tuned on my, personal and professional endeavors, because hopefully I'm able to announce a few things soon that I'm working on. I'm very excited.
That is fantastic. And I guess I did want to ask you one other thing, because the reminder of how busy you are is, how do you fit in all the treatments, CF treatments, and then just rest that you need, or when you're traveling so much and you're on the road all the time? I mean, I think that would help kids who are like going to college and think, how am I going to stay on top of this CF stuff, when I'm rather go party or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yes, college was a tough transition for me. I actually ended up hospitalized my first semester at college because it was really my first time where I really rejected doing my treatments. Like, I just didn't want to be bogged down by them. And I felt like, if my roommates don't have to do this, why should I? That was like my first time experiencing that. So don't do that, because you will, it will come back to bite you.
Good advice.
Yeah, I think it's hard, right? This is the hand we've been dealt, and it's not easy. And no one can claim that it is. But I do think prioritizing your health and prioritizing rest and your treatments and doing all that you can to stay healthy allows you the time and resources to do what you want to be doing. And that's kind of the way that I frame it for myself. That if I want to be doing this, then really it makes sense for me probably not to bite off more than I can chew in this way, There is always a balance, for sure.
Well, thank you. Thanks for coming on this podcast in your busy life. I really appreciate it. And you're going to inspire more people, and all your information is in our show notes, so everybody can follow you and check out your website and your foundation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you. The original music in this podcast is performed by Kevin Allen.
It's not complicated.
Who happens to have cystic fibrosis.
We all got our worries and fears. I know what's got you frustrated, but loving you is so alright.
This has been the Living with Cystic Fibrosis podcast. For more information and to learn more about the Bonnell Foundation, visit our website at thebonnellfoundation.org. That's the BONNELL Foundation.org. This podcast was sponsored by Vertex Pharmaceutical, The Science of Possibility, and Viatris. It was produced by Jag and Detroit Podcasts. Follow our show in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening right now.